Does living in Medellín, Colombia get boring after a while? Well, depends why you're here. If you have your holiday mode activated, you're here to party, you want to experience the novelty of dating Colombianas, if it's all about taking the drugs, you want access to cheap, high quality cocaine, if you're just basically here for all of those reasons, then yeah, the city's going to get boring after a couple of weeks, because after doing all those things, there's not much to your life here than somewhere else. Once you've visited all the nightclubs, after you've dated a load of women, after you've taken more drugs in a space of 2 weeks than you've probably done in your whole entire life beforehand, then the city would get boring and you'd start to look at other cities, maybe in Colombia, maybe in another country in Latin America, and think, wow, that looks way more interesting than Medellín, I'm going to go over there. But if you're not in Medellín for those reasons, like I am, and you're here to build a life, to enjoy the culture, to immerse yourself in the Colombian way of life, in the paisa culture, then no, I don't think this city of 4 million people, which has so much to offer, would ever get boring. And I think honestly, if you got bored of living in Medellín, you would get bored anywhere, because there is so much to do there. The culture is so rich, there are so many different activities that you can be doing here, that I think it's almost impossible for it to be boring here. I'm actually finding that Medellín is a really great city to lock into. There is a culture of hard work here. The paisas are very business orientated, they're very hardworking. Because of the great weather here, it is motivating to stay in shape, to get up early, to get stuff done. And because there's a big exercise culture here, the gyms are great, there's lots of outdoor activities to do. That's also motivating to stay in shape. Because the food quality here is significantly better in the US, for example, because of the climate, because they basically grow every single fruit and vegetable on planet Earth here, I'm finding it's just a really great place to put down roots, to kind of build a life, and to ultimately immerse yourself in paisa culture. I think a lot of influencers, a lot of YouTubers who make videos about how Medellín is overrated, how Medellín is boring, how the city does not have that much to offer outside prostitution and drugs, probably haven't integrated themselves into Colombian culture here. Maybe they didn't speak Spanish, maybe they only hang out with tourists, maybe they only stayed in the super expat community areas of the city. And yeah, with all those things, I'm not surprised that you find Medellín boring, because basically your scope for fulfillment in this great city is massively diminished compared to someone, let's say, who's much more open-minded about integrating themselves into Colombian culture here. And I think because Medellín has been more put on the map in recent years, it's more of a tourist destination, it's much more popular than it used to be in previous years or even decades. You see a lot of content being produced about how great Medellín and Colombia is online, but with that you also get the flip side. You get people saying Medellín is overrated, it's not as good as it used to be, it's oversaturated with tourists. And I haven't been to every single town or city in Colombia. I've been to most of them, but there are a lot of other great cities here in Colombia that offer just as much as Medellín. But I live here, most of my experience in Colombia is in Medellín, so that's why I feel somewhat competent in making content about it. But there is a big party culture here in Medellín. Lots of tourists come from the US, come here for a week or two, get all the partying out of their system and they leave. But as we know, with these types of holidays, there is an expiry date. And if you are only here to visit the restaurants, to go to parqueaderas, to only stay in a couple of neighborhoods in Poblado, then it would get boring after a while. If you never go to Sabaneta, if you never experience Itagüí, if you never do a safe day trip to Bello, you never get to experience that part of the metropolitan area. I mean, Medellín is big. It's a city of 4 million people in the metropolitan area, and only a small percentage of that is the touristy neighborhoods in El Poblado. But it's sad to say, but I think a lot of people's experience of coming to Medellín is exactly that. They come here on holiday, they only experience a small part of it, then they make content about how it's overrated, it's overpriced, it's oversaturated with tourists, which isn't true. Then it plants the seed that Medellín is all of the negative connotations associated with it. And I'll just give you one example of how living here can never get boring. So in the UK, from about mid-October to maybe around mid-March, everyone has seasonal depression. You only get 6 or 7 hours of daylight during the day. In those winter months, there's hardly any sunlight. I remember one year I didn't see the sun for 2 weeks in a row in January. And basically you could argue that those winter months in the UK are just a complete waste of time, because everyone is depressed, you can't go out, the weather's terrible, and so you basically lose that part of the year. Whereas here, you just don't get that. You can live 365 days of the year regardless of what month or week you're in, because look at the weather now. Look how beautiful it is here. This is just a normal, average Thursday morning at the time of filming this, in this little park near my flat. And this weather is motivating to get outside, to be in shape, to be productive with work, to be organized with your flat, to keep clean and tidy, to be the best version of yourself. So in that regard, I don't understand how people think living in Medellín is boring, only if you are here on a holiday mode. But that being said, everywhere is probably boring if you're only there on holiday mode, because once you've done all the holiday stuff, the party quickly comes to an end. So that's just my take on it, and I'll see you in the next video.